To pronounce English consonants correctly, we need to understand the idea of letters versus sounds. Sometimes the letter and the sound are the same, as in these words: talk, went. The letter T is pronounced as the sound T. Simple enough. But sometimes the letter and the sound are different, as in these words here. In that first word, you probably know we don't pronounce it as nation. The pronunciation is nation. Here, the letter T is pronounced as sh, nation. In the second word, you probably also know we don't pronounce it as mather. That pronunciation is v, mother. And sometimes the letter makes no sound at all. We spell it, but we don't say it. As in these words here: listen, Christmas. In these words, the T is silent. So, how do English learners know when the letter indicates the same sound, or the letter indicates a different sound, or the letter indicates no sound at all? Well, that's what we're going to learn right now. The first and most important thing to learn about English consonants is which ones are voiced and which ones are unvoiced. A voiced sound causes your vocal cords to vibrate. An unvoiced sound does not cause your vocal cords to vibrate. Now, is this even important? Does it really matter? If you say, "My eyes hurt," the person you say this to will think, which makes no sense, but is what you said, when what you meant to say was, "My eyes hurt." The only difference in pronunciation between eyes and ice is the voiced z and the unvoiced s. Well, maybe you're thinking, yes, but if we read the sentences, we know immediately what the writer intended. The spelling differences make it obvious. And that is true. But the problem is, when we speak, we're not writing, and the people listening to us are not reading. We don't say written words, we say sounds. So, to answer my question, is learning the difference between voiced and unvoiced consonants important? Does it really matter? Yes, it's essential. The best way to start with voiced and unvoiced consonants is to learn the consonant pairs. Consonant pairs are sounds that are articulated, they're produced in the same place in the mouth, but one is voiced and the other is unvoiced. The first pair is p, unvoiced, and b, voiced, as in pig and big, rip, rib. The second pair are the unvoiced t and the voiced d, as in try, dry, right, ride. The third pair are the unvoiced ch and the voiced j, as in choke, joke, lunch, lunch. The fourth pair are the unvoiced k and the voiced g, as in clue. You'll notice here that we spell this word with the letter C, although the sound is the unvoiced k. When that letter C is pronounced that way, we call that a hard C. So, clue, glue. Think, thing. The fifth pair are the unvoiced f and the voiced v, as in ferry, very. Telephone, televise. The sixth pair are the unvoiced th and the voice th, as in think and this. Method, weather. The seventh pair are the unvoiced s and the voice z, as in Sue, zoo. Rice, and here we'll see the letter C, except this time instead of a hard C, this C is called a soft C because we pronounce it with the unvoiced s. Rice, rise. And here this word is spelled with the letter S, but the sound is the voice z. The eighth and final pair are the unvoiced sh and the voice j, as in sure and genre, wish and age. A silent letter is one we write but do not pronounce. We spell it, but we do not say it. In English, there are two types of silent consonants. The first type occurs in digraphs. A digraph is a combination of two letters representing one sound. The first digraph we'll look at with a silent consonant is KN. The K is silent, and the single sound is N, the end. This digraph is called a beginning digraph because it occurs only at the beginnings of words. Here are some examples. No, knee, knife, knuckle. The second digraph we'll look at with a silent consonant is WH. In this digraph, the H is silent and the single sound is the W, W. Here are some examples. What, where, which, why, whether, and whisper. Note, there are a few exceptions, such as the words whole and who. In this digraph, we reverse the sound, and here the W is silent, and the H is the single sound. The second type of silent consonants are single letters. The first one we'll look at is the letter H. Most words that begin with the letter H pronounce the sound H. However, there are some words in English, there aren't many, which actually come from the French. So they retain that silent H as they are pronounced or not pronounced in French. However, when you read the word, there's no way for you to recognize that it comes from the French or not. So there's really no pattern to recognize. And because there are not really that many, it's probably best either to look at the phonetic spelling in a dictionary or just to remember which ones they are because there's not that many. Here are words, most of the words, with a silent H at the beginning. Hour, honest, honor, air, herb. The next silent consonant we'll look at is the letter S. Sometimes the silent S occurs at the beginning of words and sometimes toward the end of words. The silent S also comes from the French, but as I mentioned before, there's no way when you're reading these words to know that these were words that we've borrowed from French and so should remain silent. The best way for you to learn which words are silent, which words contain the silent S, is to either look in a dictionary at the phonetic spelling or just to remember them because there aren't that many. Here are a few examples. Island, isle, debris, rendezvous. Okay, that's all we have time for today. If you'd like written, speaking, and listening practice with consonants, remember to subscribe and access free PDFs. Thank you very much.